Hello, everyone, and welcome to CraftQuest On Call. I'm Ryan Ireland, I was going to say esteemed host, but I don't want to give myself that description because maybe I'm not esteemed to anyone, including myself. This is a live stream we do on the first and third Thursday of every month. And by we, I mean my beloved co host, Andrew Welch. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good.
Congratulations on winning that local award for the best vegan taco. I'm very proud of you. We're all very proud of you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And for anyone who's watching, do not adjust your set. I've not suddenly become homeless, and I am not addicted to crack. None of these things have happened. Um, Essentially, I don't know. Tyler goads me into doing all these crazy things. I told him I wouldn't shave anything for all of November.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be looking progressively more, ragged as the month drags on.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what your style is you have going on. It's like, um, I don't know. What can we? I'll have to
There's
name it
no
something.
style, Ryan.
There's
Like
no
there's zero
style.
style. No. The style that you're looking for is called washed. Okay?
Yeah, it's
Like a
almost
pair
like
of jeans that you've had for a long time and they're just, they're a little ragged around the edges, all that kind of stuff.
it kind of feels a little bit like maybe like a hanging bird's nest or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, bird's nest.
I'm trying to get my. Hang on, I need to find my preview window here real quick so I can see this without looking over into my other screen. But anyway, yeah. Well, I also have been growing out my beard for the last year, and it's really starting to fill out.
That's a year? Oh my
No, I'm
God.
just kidding. um,
There's more fuzz on a peach, Ryan.
yeah. So you'll be who someone yeah. Andrea said that you'll like Santa by Christmas.
Great. That's exactly what I've wanted to hear my entire life. Thanks. An old fat guy. Thanks, Andrea. That's what I'm looking for, really. Yeah.
I mean, does the traditional like Western version of Santa even have hair? I don't even know because he always got the hat on. So you could
Yeah.
pass. You could
You just
pass.
never know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess congratulations on your beard. So on today's episode of the live stream, we have a few things. Of course, one of those being questions. But let's look through and talk about what we're going to cover in this episode. How about that? All right. First up is there's my little screen. All right, Andrew, we're going to answer questions from the community and chat. If anyone has questions as we're talking about anything we're talking about, including Andrew's beard.
Did you even tweet this episode out, Ryan?
I did.
Oh, I see.
I did. That's why there's 8,000 people watching.
No, you did it 2 hours ago. Is the only one?
No, I just posted a few minutes ago.
Oh, you didn't at me. Okay.
Oh yeah. No, sorry, did not.
I know you're new to this whole thing. I understand. Make mistakes.
I'm good at creating things, and you always criticize me for my ability to promote them. So I appreciate that, and it's one of the things that makes it difficult for me to sleep through the night and even fall asleep sometimes. So we're gonna answer questions.
Do you cry yourself to sleep, Ryan?
From your
Does it hurt that bad? Are the cuts that deep?
From your criticisms. All right, and we're also going to look at will GitHub Copilot, Andrew? Do you think it's going to take your job?
Am I supposed to answer that now?
Oh, no. This is what they call a promo.
Got it.
So in the pre-show chat, Matt said that he doesn't think it is going to take his job. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll take a look at GitHub Copilot and what it is, and can it even write Twig code? I know it can write JavaScript because everybody's writing JavaScript in VS Code, but we'll see if it can write some Twig. We'll see what the output is. And we're gonna answer another question, which is Andrew retiring to a lakeside house with a dock? That is our last topic for the day. What do you think about that, Andrew?
That actually sounds pretty good, Ryan. It sounds good to me.
You like that?
Yeah.
I mean, how far are you from one of the Great Lakes? Not too
We
far,
are
right?
exactly 1 mile
Are you?
from
I
Lake
didn't know you were that
Ontario.
close.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have this huge patch of grass, like by the driveway of your property. I don't want to give out way too much OPSEC here.
It's
Um,
fine.
okay, but I really want to build. Is it big enough for me to have a house and a pool?
Yes, it would be big enough for you to have a house and a
Especially
pool,
a
but it would
city.
be
Like I own a house in the city right now, so it's basically if it's bigger than a postage stamp, then I'm game.
yeah, but it would be very dangerous for you to have a house and a pool there.
Why? Why?
Well, because my house is up on a hill, and I would have an excellent shot at you down there.
It is the country, so you got to be careful. Everybody has a gun.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
All right. So let's move on. We have some questions too, Andrew, and I have a few that are going to put you on the spot, maybe, which will be good, right? It's like stump the
That's,
chump. Not that you're a
what?
chump.
What'd you call me? Oh my God!
Andrew,
Look at
last
what I
time
have
that
to
we
put
live
up with
streamed,
here.
we were it was a follow up to dot all. So we
You know
didn't do.
the endearing thing about you, Ryan. The endearing thing
That's a
about you
sentence never spoken to me. Go ahead.
is that it's like talking to a young child because every time that I speak with you, you're amazed at some new fact about me that I've told you about 10 times, but everything is always new, you
I'm
know?
like a
Oh, really? You're only 1 mile from the lake? Oh, really? You did a talk at Dot All on Jamstack? Oh, that's the one that you were out on the patio eating your vegan caviar and drinking your oat milk and you missed it, right? But
now you're just reusing jokes from text messages like 30 minutes ago. Come on.
no, 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 no,
You need to have
no,
fresh
no, no.
content.
It's important for the public to know the real Ryan, okay?
Uh-huh.
The real
Uh-huh.
Ryan who says he goes to conferences and takes notes. He's out on the patio, boys and girls. That's where he is.
All right. So I'd like to point everybody to craftquest.io slash dot all. And you can see my notes. And I believe Andrew even texted me with something like those dot all notes are amazing. I think that's what you said.
They actually are amazing. You say all I do is criticize you. That's not true. I speak the truth. Sometimes the truth is a hard pill to swallow.
Oh
But
man, I
the
wish
truth is that
I
those dot all notes are amazing. You definitely were not on the patio for that. It's a great recap of all of the presentations really that were done at dot all. I mean, it is.
uh I just coaxed the compliment out of you. That's very nice.
You get them all the time. Give me a break.
Not in public. Public, I'm just criticized and battered. All right. Let's move on to our questions. Hopefully there's no one new. I mean, I hope there are people new watching, but they probably think we don't like each other. Maybe they're right.
Oh, sorry. I was supposed to say something there.
You're supposed to like be like, ah, ha, 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 ah, ah. All right, Andrew. First question.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen? The question here.
I can see your screen.
All right, this is direct from Stack Exchange. What's the best practice for creating computed attributes on entries, like dynamic or virtual? So the example is this person wants to be able to access entry.fullname, or just instead of setting the variable like full name, they want to be able to do something like entry.fullname. So they can kind of pre-compute these properties before the template's loaded. So the person said, I've read about custom modules, but that seems like overkill. Also, Craft may not offer any API for something like this, but ye might help. Andrew, what would you do if you needed to kind of preset some data, maybe that's combining on the fly data via like entry variables, things like that?
So the best way to do this is via a behavior, which is a topic that we've covered before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically where you can just take an object and you can add additional properties or methods to it that you want to use. And I've actually done this on some sites for people that wanted to be able to do exactly this. Like I said, you've got a video on it. I've got an article on it on adding behaviors. And it's relatively painless. You will need a custom module just as a way to hook in. but writing the actual behavior is pretty easy because you just hook into an event and you just add whatever stuff you need to add, and it will do its thing, and away you go, and it will all just work like magic. He says that he thinks that a custom module is overkill. You would need it if you wanted to do something like this. I'm not aware. Yeah.
That's
Well,
like your only entry point into like.
let's just put it this way: there are other ways you could do it. There's probably even a way. No, no, there's no way to do it via Twig that I can think of. But it's the way to do it. But the module would be essentially nothing. It would be there just to add the behavior, is all it would be there for. And we've talked about it before, but I always add a module to every site that I make, even if I never use it,
Mhm.
just as an empty skeleton, so that if a case like this does come up, I can just plop whatever code in that I need there. But
Yeah.
super easy to just add a behavior that has that computes this stuff for you if you wanted to do it that way.
And I don't think a module is overkill. If anything, a module is like the entry level into doing a customization like this.
Yeah.
But
Now,
couldn't I also
Andrew,
do like a twig variable or something like that too?
well, that's what he's doing, and he's saying I don't want to do that, right? So he's
No, I
setting
mean,
it.
I'm sorry. In a module that kind of. Well, I guess you still have to pass in. It still has to know what the data is in order to
Yeah,
concatenate
you
the
would want to
value.
have it on as a behavior because
Yeah.
it would be different for each one, and you'd only
Yep.
want to add the behavior to certain sections, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Andrea in the chat is saying using a prepars plugin,
Hmm.
and yeah, you could do that. You could have a field that you add to the entry, and you could use the prepars plugin, which would essentially run the something code very similar to what he has up there with set full name equals whatever. Instead of set, you would just output entry.firstname and the quotes and entry.lastname. And what happens is when you save the entry, it actually parses the twig that's in the prepars field. And the result of that field is going to be the output from the twig, right? So it would be, think of it at like a micro template for Twig where you're pre-computing this stuff. And it does it on entry save, so there would be no runtime hit for it either.
Exactly. And I don't think I have a video on behaviors. Maybe I should create one.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't. But I will put a link along with the recording to. You said you have an article about that, I think, right?
Yep. I do have an article on behaviors, and they're relatively easy to do and add. And I'm looking for something here. Pursuant to what? Wow.
Is everything
That's not
okay?
good. Yeah. I was expecting to find something with a search term, but I'm not finding it. Anyway, what I was going to say was, so he's doing set full name equals entry dot first name tilde quote tilde entry dot last name.
Yeah.
And I typically, if I'm going to do something like this, I prefer to use string interpolation
Hmm.
in there. So what I would do is, and that's what I was trying to bring up. I don't know why. Ah, there we go. There we go. I'm gonna send you the. How do you want it in the chat or?
You
Yeah,
can
I'll put it in
drop
the
it
chat.
in the chat. Sure.
Okay. So it's just a tweet that I did that shows different ways that you can do this in Twig. And what I would typically do is I would just do full name equals quote, and then you put the little dollar sign, and then did I link to the wrong one?
And then curly brace.
Yeah, and then curly brace, and then the expression, and then end curly brace. I think I linked to the wrong one.
Did you put anything into the chat?
Oh no, I did. Yeah, I did.
Into which chat? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I put it in the right one. And sorry, it's not dollar sign, it's pound. I was thinking JavaScript stuff. I
Right.
put it into the YouTube chat. Oh, you wanted me to put it in this chat? Oh, okay, all right. There you go.
No, I don't see it in the YouTube chat.
It's
Oh, I'm sorry. I
there
have top chat. You're not top chat.
clearly. All right, I put it into the other chat too.
All right, cool.
But basically, it's just a little less verbose, and it reads a little better too, because you say full name equals and then this whole string, and you put pound curly bracket, and then anything that's in there is a twig expression that gets evaluated inside of the string. And then you put your space, and then you do a pound curly bracket, then the other part of it, and then it's just a little bit neater. That's all.
Yep. Matt was correcting you before you could correct yourself
Of course.
in the chat.
I would
Excellent.
expect no less.
So best practice would be PHP, would be behaviors, sorry, no, ye behaviors, and then do it via module, I think is the best place to do that.
Yeah, if he really wants to make these convenience accessors, that's the way to do it. And the other fun thing is if you're using our autocomplete module and you're using PHP Storm, it will autocomplete these behaviors for you too. So it's pretty cool.
Aha, very cool. All right. So Andrew, you've written a plugin or two, and maybe they have like custom field types in them. So this person is asking how to bind JavaScript events to entry form fields in the control panel. So the crux of this is they have this field, and when somebody enters like this resource ID, they want it to look up the ID in an external API to check whether that resource ID exists or not. So some sort of like validation. And we've seen this in other instances before. They're wondering, is there a way to do that? And if so, what would be kind of like your general approach to something like this in the Craft control panel?
I honestly probably would write a custom field type for it. Not that it's necessary, but it's just kind of nice because then you can use it anywhere and it kind of bundles together all the stuff, including the JavaScript that does a lookup and all that kind of stuff that you need. And also I find that when I'm doing something like this, often it starts out that I can just use the regular field type, but then other things come up. They're like, it would really be nice if it did an autocomplete drop down, or it would really be nice if it did this, that, or the other thing. You certainly could do this with JavaScript, but then you would also then be hard coding like what is the field ID that it needs to look for. All of these things are possible with JavaScript, and you could just use again in your module that hopefully you already have for your site, or there's a CPJS or CP JavaScript that you can use to inject JavaScript. Again, I think I like doing it via custom field type because then you can have it inject the JavaScript only on pages that actually have this custom field type, and it's linked to that custom field type, and everything just kind of works. And you have videos on creating custom fields, or at least creating plugins. I've got an article on creating custom fields. It's not too bad because what you do is you end up just subclassing an existing Craft field type, and then you just add your asset bundle with the JavaScript and CSS that you need, and it just goes and does its thing. And that would be my preferred way to do it.
And if it's a straightforward like a number field type or plain text field type, there's really not like all your work is going to be, and you don't have a ton of UI, like you're not rebuilding something like Matrix, then all of your work is going to be just on that, fetching or hitting the API and then getting a response and doing whatever UI sort of visual indicator you want to ensure that it's like a checkbox or whatever.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You're also going to want to be able to add like a custom error. So he says he wants to make sure that this exists. So you really would want to display a custom error that says this resource doesn't exist. I'm not saying you can't do that via JavaScript, but probably the nicest way to tie into that is that you can have a custom field that can have all the appropriate validation on it. So it's not just front-end validation, it won't even save the thing if it already exists and all that kind of good stuff.
I was going to ask, like, if we just did it just straight JavaScript or on an existing plain text field, then it could check, but theoretically you could still save it with the incorrect value, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, because it validates.
So,
if it's,
it's interesting. Both of the questions are basically have a module and then leverage the system to, to do the work, to do the thing. And, again, certainly you could just write some JavaScript and you could find a way to then inject that JavaScript. But it's just not going to be as clean. It's not going to be as neat, and you might end up regretting it. It's also, ironically, probably more likely to break in
Hmm.
future versions of Craft. If they shift stuff around under the hood,
Yep.
than a custom field type would be. So that would be how I would do it.
Yeah, custom field type would be your most robust and bulletproof approach, and
Well,
honestly,
let's
not
not say bulletproof.
and not your most and not a lot more work because you're still having to do like with the JavaScript, you're still having to write all that JavaScript with this with the default like plain text field or something. So it's
Yep.
not a ton more work than just doing it, or if you just did it kind of with the existing field.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, we're banging through them here, Andrew. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. This is for you. This is a
Oh
nitro question.
no. What?
But it's actually not. It's more about and I've run into this with Docker as well. I mean, this is Docker related, but I've run into with just like the Docker setup that you created that I use for CraftQuest. And we probably run into this all the time, or some people will, especially when they're first using Docker and they still might have other system software running. So this person is trying to install Nitro. Says they're fairly new to web design, especially the command line. So they're running bash and then trying to run the curl command to get the installer and run it for Nitro. But they're getting unable to start the Nitro container, error response from the daemon, ports are not available, port is already allocated. So sometimes you can get this, especially if you're running multiple things at once, or if you are, and he even said before, my brother had me set up with MariaDB. So he had some system software running. So Andrew, I want to kind of, well, I want to pause on, I was going to move into like your whole doc life thing, because I think this is kind of related because, and we'll talk about that later, but it sounds like that when you are straddling between having like system, like let's say Nginx or Apache running on your actual system software, and then you're using Docker and you're trying to pull things up in port 80, there's going to be conflicts. Like it's not going to work. And that sounds like that's what's happening here. He ran this sudo lsof and just basically checking for TCP ports. There's another way to do it that I found that should be a little bit better. Let's see if I still have it. So I think I use
Well,
this
what?
one here, just where you're just looking for. I was looking for port 80 in this example,
Yep.
but there's all sorts of different ways to check for which ports are being used right now
Yep.
on your machine. There's tons of different combinations of commands, but that's the first thing that you would want to do. But I would say that if you're going to use a Docker setup like this,
Well,
whether
hold
it's
on, hold on, hold on.
oh,
Before
go
we get
ahead.
into the nitty gritty of it,
Yeah,
before
you
we get
go.
into that, I got a couple of things for you.
Okay.
So, first of all, you're using this lsof command, right?
Hmm.
You know what lsof stands for?
It's like list of files or something, right?
Yeah, list of open
Of
files. And the
open
reason
files.
why, and it doesn't make sense until you understand the way that Unix works,
All right.
which is which is that it tries to keep everything very simple, and things like services and network services are just kind of treated like files. You just kind of write to them and it all just works. So anything that is listening on a port, which we'll get to in a second, is going to be listed as an open file,
Right.
technically, from a Unix point of view. And if you're using a Mac, you're using a variant of Unix underneath that.
Right.
The thing I wanted to mention real quick about ports is, ports, what is a port and a conflict? And just think of a port as a unique street address, right? So system needs to know where to deliver mail. You need to know to go where to pick it up. You've got a number on the box, and that's what it is, right? And the numbers, there are numbers that are reserved for standard services that are, going from, I don't know what the lowest port number that is actually in use is, but and actually, if you ran LSOF just without the awk there at the end, you'll see all of them. So we could take a look at that. But there are standard ports that are being used. Now he mentioned something about um, MySQL,
Yeah,
and he said
MariaDB. Yep.
port. Yeah, well, MySQL is MariaDB, like same.
Yep.
Um, and he mentions port 3000. Well, that's not the default port. I would be surprised if MariaDB was using that port. It's probably using 3306,
Mm-hmm.
which is the default port that it uses.
Yep.
And the fundamental problem here, as you touched upon, is that something else is already using that port. And just like you're not going to have the same street address as anyone else on your street, each service is going to have a different address or a different port number associated with it. Right. So it's kind of like a Highlander thing. There can be only one, you know? So the fundamental problem is you got to find out what is using the port that uh, that Nitro is looking for, and turn it off. So if he's set up MariaDB, probably you need to shut that down, and then Nitro will be able to start up because it also is going to expose port 3306. So you
Yep.
can then connect to that and do your databasey thing.
Or does Mac OS even still ship with a web server running? I don't think it does.
I haven't checked in so long, but
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
believe so.
But that's another place. I didn't see an error message. I didn't see anything about what port there was a conflict.
Well, he did
Just
mention port 3000 somewhere, didn't he? You want to bring
yeah,
the
but that was
question up?
just his
Oh, okay.
thing. He said he thought that MariaDB uses port 3000, but you're right
I see.
that
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well, it could, right? But it's not. It would be unlikely
It would be
that it would be set
customized
up
to do
that way.
that, which would be unusual.
And if your brother did set it up that way, then just smack him for me,
Tell
okay?
your brother to keep his hands off your computer.
No,
What
his
I
brother
see.
was helping,
Oh,
Ryan. His brother was helping.
all
But
right.
you were going to talk about you're going to before I rudely interrupted you with that stuff. You're going to talk about some Docker related stuff as pursuant
So
to this.
the idea is like, so you are squarely in the camp of I don't run any of this software on my system. I don't rely on any of it. You do it all via Docker. And my whole thing was like when you're straddling those two worlds, things like this happen, right? Where you do get these port conflicts. I've even had it where I was doing something in another tool and I had forgotten to shut it down, and then I try to start up my own like CraftQuest project for local development, and it's like we can't, port's not available. So for this person, they probably need to just get their local environment set up so it works reliably with Docker, and then after that, they won't have to worry about it. Just don't let your brother install stuff. Next thing you know, you'll be a bun on Roblox. Do you know about that?
I know about Roblox. I don't know about Bun Bun.
My kid taught me about it.
I don't spend my time trying to pursue areas that children are congregating, Ryan. Unlike you, apparently.
So let's see. It says, they're like some like group of like hackers on Roblox.
Ah,
They
okay.
call themselves Bun Bun Girls, and all they say is Bun Bun in the
No.
game.
Well, probably Tyler is involved in that then.
It has to do with furries too.
Oh God. All right. I'll keep a
My kid
lookout
asked me
for
the
the
other day if I know
tail.
what a furry is, and I was like, if I say yes, you're gonna think I'm a furry. But anyway, uh, all right. Next up,
What? Okay. Just one other thing about that. Yeah,
yeah,
basically just have your brother uninstall whatever he installed, and it should be good to go. You should be able to install and fire Nitro up. And again, it's just because in order to operate, there are certain services that Nitro wants to provide. One of which is a database, another is a web server, et
yep,
cetera, et cetera. And if something is already using those ports, whether it's the stuff your brother installed, or whether it's MAMP or one of these other local dev environments like Valet, you got to shut that down before you use Nitro or Docker directly or whatever. I know Ryan was getting all fancy, tossing this, Docker that around. Nitro does use Docker under the hood, but we don't want to confuse the situation here, Ryan.
whoa, something
We
just
all
fell.
we all know you know what you're talking about. You don't need to show off, okay?
All right, Andrew. Speaking of Docker
Yeah.
and and I don't want to be the only one talking about Docker since you never talk about it. Um,
And by the way, this that's going on here is
yeah.
what looks like when you after you spend a week working on Docker, JavaScript, and Makefiles. Like this is what happens to you.
Mhm.
Just so you know. Yeah.
I will say that people that use Makefiles definitely have that look. That's for sure.
No neck beard though.
You keep it, yeah. I
Although this month I can't shave it. It's
That's
not great.
right. But your head, you can still continue to shave your head.
Mm-mm.
Really?
Nope. I was told not to.
Hang on one second. Let me are you off the
What are you gonna do that like enhance like they do in the
I'm trying
movies
to
where
get
you're
a
gonna
good
zoom
shot
in?
like
There's not enough there yet. And there may never be enough there yet.
wow. Cuz you've criticized me for not, you got me this nice palm shaving thing and I do use it
It's
every
not for shaving your palms, Ryan. If you
well,
have hair in your
I
palms,
mean
it means something else entirely.
oh gosh. All right, new topic. Andrew,
Good.
so we're talking about Docker. Let's go into this. I feel like we could do a whole show on it, but I do want to get to GitHub Copilot and how it is going to put you out of work, Andrew, because it's going
All
to
right. All
create
right. Let's get to
it's going to
GitHub
create
Copilot.
SEO-matic on its own. But uh, at what day will a hat become a thing this month? You can borrow
Actually,
mine.
that's funny because I was actually considering, but it might happen, Matt. It definitely might happen.
Is this a good look?
All you have on the camera is me, just so you know.
Hang on, hang on. My kid said I don't look like cool dad.
That
She said
looks
I
like
look
the
like
tip of a condom, Ryan.
she said I look like a yard gnome. All
Oh,
right.
the innocence of a child. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Andrew, so you did this article on the doc life, which is all about with this photo that you posted. It really made me think that it's really just all about your retirement,
It's
moving
a nice photo, isn't it?
closer to the lake. Um, can you get houses on which Great Lake are you on?
Lake Ontario.
Can you get houses on Lake Ontario?
Absolutely. They're all over the place, man, like any lake.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have one. So
Here's the thing, man. Like I've thought about it,
mhm,
and I think lakes make really nice backdrops. Like they're really peaceful and serene, and all that kind of stuff. But unless you have a dock there and a boat, and you're someone that's going to take the boat out really often,
yeah.
you're not probably going to want to. I don't know. At least for me, the appeal of having a beach or sorry, a lake house would probably, I don't know.
I would like
There's
a
no.
lake cottage.
Yeah,
That
no, that's fine because you
yeah.
go there occasionally and it's a nice change of pace and all that. But I'm just saying, like, unless you have like a beach there and it has
Right.
nice, easy access to the water, which most of Lake Ontario, it's not that. It's kind of rocky in a lot of areas. There definitely
Oh,
are
okay.
beaches. There are beaches, but we're not talking no Caribbean island here. And then
Right.
there are downsides to living right on the lake, which is the wind comes
The
right
wind, yeah, I
off
was
it,
gonna say. Yeah.
all the snow comes right off it. I think it looks pretty. I agree with you. Like, if I were to do it, it would be to have a cottage or something like that somewhere, as
Yep.
opposed to just living there. Now, if we're talking like Hawaii or the Caribbean or something, I'm down. I'm down. I don't have the money for it, but I'm down to do
You're
it.
you're just in a cabana right on the water.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, but we're not talking about your retirement. You're not going to retire yet. When you do, we are going to have a send-off party, and I've already selected your replacement, so I don't have to worry about
Good.
that.
No, it should be
Um,
easy to find. So,
so Andrew, you don't ever get in the situation that the last question person got in, which is where you have these port conflicts because you don't have system software running. You don't even run Composer on your computer. Is that right?
correct. And it's funny. This is something that I've been doing things this way for a really long time, and I occasionally have discussions with people and I say, "Oh, you could really do it this way," and then I'm like, "Oh, I really need to write this article detailing all this thing."
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Gray and I have gone back and forth. Matt Gray, for anyone who doesn't know, he runs served .host,
Yep, which
and
hosts
he
the
did a
site
really
you're
nice,
you're watching this on. If you're watching it right on the site.
yeah. And did a really nice presentation on Docker at I think .all Montreal, or maybe I don't know, one of the .alls. He did a really nice presentation on Docker, and he's very, very skilled at DevOps stuff. He's been doing it a long time, and he has helped me on a number of things. And we have talked back and forth about writing this article. He's like, I really should write this article on using Docker, using aliases for Docker commands. And I'm like, yeah, I really should write one too. And we're kind of playing this game of chicken about who would do it. And I lost because I ended up writing it. But I actually had a conversation with Matt Wilcox about this a little while ago. And he's like, oh, that sounds really cool. And I'm like, yeah, I really should write the article. And then this week, I was talking to John Morton, who just got a brand new, he's the one who used to run Craft Link Lists for a really long
Yep.
time.
And he was on the
And
live stream 2 weeks ago when we did the .all wrap up along with
that's right.
Caroline. Yeah.
And he just got his brand new MacBook Pro and he was getting ready to set it up. And I said, oh, you should really do it like this. And he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about doing it like that. And I'm like, yeah, I've been thinking about writing an article on it. And finally, I was just like, you know what? And he said, and I was like, oh man, I really should do this. And then he said, you know what? I'll proof it for you if you want. And I'm like, oh man,
Ooh.
oh man. All right. I'm going to write it. So I think it was Monday. I just sat down and wrote this article. And the too long didn't read on it. I do hope you read it. But the
I
too
did read
long
it.
didn't read on it is it's the royal you, Ryan. Not everything is
Oh,
about
sorry. I
you
thought you were
and
talking to
your
me since I'm
no.
the other person that's
You,
in this conversation. Go ahead.
No, you as in anyone who's listening, I hope that you do read the article. But the too long didn't read on the article is essentially that you can use a shell alias. So you type something, a shell alias is just you type something in terminal
Mm-hmm.
and it spits something else out, right? It's
Yep.
like a fancy macro,
Yep.
right? You can use that to run all of these services, to run Composer, to run NPM, to run Deno if you want to check out the new hotness with Deno, whatever. And what it will do is it will go out, and if you've never run it before, it will pull down a Docker container that has everything that is needed to run that command, and then it will just run it. And from then on, it will run the command, and then it will exit. Why would you do this? You would do this because installing everything on your computer itself via Homebrew or something like that is a little bit fragile. So first of
Mm-hmm.
all, there's more setup time every time you move to a new computer or get a new computer. You got to install all the packages. You got to make sure you got all the dependencies right.
Gosh,
But it
yeah.
also is a little bit limiting in that you only going to have a certain version of something installed at a time. Now, I know there are ways to switch between versions of Node, versions of
NVM,
PHP. Like
yeah.
there are
Yeah, but I
hacks
live
around.
in NVM hell right now, so it's not
Yeah.
good.
And that's the thing about it is like if you're setting up your local machine with all this stuff, yeah, it's great because everything is installed there. But when something is going wrong, your whole machine is just hosed, right? A lot of times you can't do anything. Some of these tools that switch between like NVM hell you mentioned and some other things, they break. You get a new operating system and does all the stuff that I need to use, does it actually even work on this yet? Who knows? I don't know. You sidestep all of these problems because the tools that you use are not running on your machine. They're running in this little tiny little container that you spin up. So you still can just type npm install.
Mm-hmm.
The alias takes care of all the magic behind the scenes to start the Docker container up, but you're not running this stuff on your machine. And that lets you run any version of the thing that you want. If you really need Node 10 to do something, you can just do it. You don't have to install it and worry about, all the hell that can arise from that. And it's just a way of working that I like. It's just really, it feels nice. When I get a new computer, I put the new aliases on the computer, I install Docker, and I'm done. Like all the stuff that I need is there.
So up on the screen, I have an example of your alias file, and it's great. I've used aliases for everything from just just having a shortcut for commands to
Yep.
even where a git alias didn't work, just use an actual
Do me a favor, hit reload, Ryan, because you have an old version of this article up, I think.
an old version.
I think so. Oh, no. If you don't, then I need to fix something real quick.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But is there a problem? Not a problem, but is there going to be a challenge with like disk space on the computer with all these images?
Not really. It's pretty efficient. It's not like installing a virtual machine for every
Mhm.
one of these things. It's just installing just the things that it needs. And the way that Docker works is it layers things.
Okay.
So things that use common layers are actually sharing them. I mean, I have a MacBook Pro that I got in, I want to say 2019,
Mhm.
a 2 terabyte model, and I haven't even hit a terabyte on it. And I am horrible with stuff, man. I just install everything and it's chaos everywhere. I don't know. Storage is cheap. I don't really
Okay.
worry about that, to
You
be
don't
honest
have
with you.
you're getting a new laptop, right? One of the new ones?
Eventually,
Okay.
apparently.
I haven't ordered one yet. I was waiting for all the beta testers to try it out first.
Come on. Especially with the Mac Pros that came out, or the MacBook Pros that came out last year.
Yeah.
The 13-inch MacBook Pro
I
came
guess
out
they
last
have
year.
the
This
chip
is
stuff
not.
figured out. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not really beta testing, I think, at this point. I agree with you, though. That was, in addition to them not having the form factors that I wanted and the amount of RAM that I wanted when they first came out about a year ago, I was also just like, you know what? I'm gonna let Patrick Harrington beta test all this stuff for me. I'm not gonna even care about that, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So Andrew, I'm tempted. I know you're fixing something, but I'm tempted
It's already fixed. It's already
uh,
fixed.
to
It just
try
changed
this after
npmx
the
there to
live
npm.
stream. I
I'm
really
sorry.
want to try this,
Okay.
and on my, I don't know, I'll just do it on my machine I'm working on right now, the iMac here,
Yep.
and give it a shot. I am due. So this laptop that's running behind me is several years old, and it's just a complete disaster in terms of everything. But the only reason I'm able to get work done on it reliably is because I am using your Docker setup for CraftQuest and for a couple of other projects. But
Yeah. So
I'm
what is the NVM? I'm just curious, Ryan. What is the NVM hell that you're in? You're having issues like
Well,
switching
because every time
between.
you open a new command prompt, right, it's a new session and it
Yep.
resets back to what you had before. And whether that's in PHP Storm, in VS Code, and I've never really dug into like, can I set like, like I've been working with Nux 3 in the beta, and that's different than the requirements for Node for that are different than for other things. And it
Got it.
just becomes like you run a command and then it doesn't work, and you're like, F, like,
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah,
And that's one of the things I love about Docker, man. And you go back and you read some issue and it says, oh, this actually needs Node 16. Okay,
right,
I'm going to change one number
yep,
in my setup and it's going to run and it's going to work and it's fantastic.
yep.
And I encourage you to definitely try this out. Just copy and paste them into your .zs. God, I can't even speak today. In your .zshrc file,
Yep.
and that's just the RC little
What does that
trivia
stand
stands
for?
for run commands.
Run commands. All right.
Yeah, because what happens is when your shell starts up, which happens when you open your terminal,
Mhm.
it looks for this .zshrc file, and it just runs all the stuff that's in there. So alias is actually a command. You could actually type this on the command line, Brian. It doesn't have to be in a file. If you wanted to
You
create a
could set the
temporary
alias and
alias,
just use it once,
yeah,
or just use it in
absolutely.
that session.
Yep, it would be there until you close your terminal. Yeah. Hmm.
Yep. Matt asked, how would you go about making a new recipe? Say I need a new thing. How do you find the Docker bit?
So I'm glad you asked, Matt. So I did mention a little bit about that at the end of the article, I think, but the way I kind of do it is I go to hub.docker.com, which is Docker Hub, which will list stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan's going to do that real quick. And essentially, you can think of this sort of as NPM or Packagist for Docker. So let's say we're interested in FFmpeg. Type in FFmpeg, and you will find all of the aliases that are there, or sorry, all the Docker images that are there. Go to the J. Rottenberg FFmpeg. So this is the image that I use. A Docker image is just all of that DevOps stuff packaged up. And when you do Docker run, it takes the image and it turns that into a container that runs with everything that's in that image. And you can have as many containers running at the same time as you want. But basically, what I do is I find the package that I want. And then using the kind of template that I have in that article, you just paste in the name of the image, which here would be jrottenberg/ffmpeg. And optionally, you can put a tag if you want to pin it to a specific version. And that's it, and there'll usually be a little documentation. Like I think on this one, for instance, if you scroll down on the
Oh,
ffmpeg,
yep. Hang on.
it will show you like some example commands of things that you can do and all that kind of stuff. Keep going. No, I think it's further down. There you go. So there are just some examples of things that you can do, and they're showing you how to do it with Docker run, which is what all of my aliases use.
Right.
And I typically set it up where I just have the base alias that runs the command with a container, and everything else that you type after that is going to be passed in as command line arguments, right? So in here, you could just type ffmpeg, and then everything he has after the run command there, you can just put that in the CLI.
Right. And so you're just basically just routing it to Docker instead of, if you happen to have, you probably don't even have FFmpeg installed locally, but in case someone did, it
Oh.
would just route it to Docker. Or in your case, if you didn't have that, it would just fail because it wouldn't be able to find it.
And Matt is asking about, well, hey, what if I need to create my own image? And this is a case where it's much easier to just use stuff that people have already created. However, let's say you have a friend like John Morton.
It's a good friend to
And
have.
this is why I lost a couple of days doing this stuff, man. Go to github.com/nystudio107. Yep. And click on repositories. And click on Docker Yeoman. So one of the things that John wanted to be able to do was he uses Yeoman, which is kind of a scaffolding tool. He uses that to do some of the stuff that he does, and he wanted to Dockerize it, right? So I'm like, okay. So what you do here is exactly this, Ryan. So this is basically a Docker file, which tells you how to build a Docker image. And the from right there is the existing image that you're going to base your image on. So I'm just basing it on Node with whatever version that we want passed in there via the optional tag parameter. And we set the working directory to /app. And then you can see run down there. These are commands that are run during the building of this Docker image. And really all we're doing, the important thing we're doing there is we're doing an npm install -g of yo. So yo is the yeoman command, and we're using npm to install it globally, so it will be available. And the other three commands that are there are just fixing some permission issues that maybe someone was late night searching around and took me a while to figure out how to do this, right? Usually you don't have to do that. And then the CMD is just the entry point. It's not the entry point. It's the command that is run when the container starts up. So we're basically saying whenever anyone does Docker run with our image, we want to run the yo command. And then anything else we type on the CLI will be then passed into it. This is more involved than just using the images. So this is kind of like the advanced version of what's in the article. The article really just does some explaining of the basics of doing this stuff and then how you can use aliases to leverage existing images. But should you need to create your own image, you can do this. And, Matt, since you asked, we're going to go even deeper. You might say, okay, great, this is the image file, but then how do I build it? Go back, Ryan, to the root of this source here. And you can build these things locally. There are ways that you can do that. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. And I actually build them locally when I'm testing stuff. But yes, go to GitHub Workflows.
This was this behind your message to me yesterday asking how familiar I am with GitHub workflows? Yes. Okay.
Yes. And then click on build and push Docker images.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this is doing is it's leveraging a GitHub action, which will do all the things that are needed to build the Docker image in the cloud via GitHub and then push it to my Docker Hub account so that I can then use it. So now anyone can pull down NY Studio 107 slash, I think I called it Node Yeoman, or
Node
I
Yeoman,
forget.
yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So this is kind of the YAML recipe for doing that build step.
So
And,
now there
it's
is
a
a
bunch of,
Yeoman Docker image available
that's
because there
right.
was, I presume there wasn't one available before, and that's why you had to build it yourself.
Right, exactly. And Matthew Wilcox is saying in chat, nice, Docker file is a recipe for a new image. That's exactly right. And images are composable. That's right again. So
Mhm.
you can just layer any image on top of any other image, which is really, really powerful if you think about it.
Yep.
But scroll down just a little bit. So one of the other nice things that this does for you is it uses a tool called BuildX, and that allows you to build the images in multiple architectures. So I'm building this both for AMD and for ARM. So I'm building it both
Nice.
for Intel Macs as well as for Apple Silicon Macs. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's what it does. We're not going to go through everything this does here. You obviously don't even have to do this, but it's kind of nice. You can basically just copy and paste this stuff, change a few things, and then you'll be able to build your own images via your own GitHub actions. And the nice thing about it is anytime you make changes to your actual image, all you do is push that change to GitHub and the action will just run. It will build it and it'll push the image to Docker Hub and boom, it's available to everybody, not just locally on your computer, which is what would happen if you built the image locally.
Right. Very cool. So check out Andrew's article, and I am going to give this a shot. If I'm feeling energetic, I might turn on the live stream and try to set it up live. Andrew's
Good.
Doc Life. This is what Andrew's retirement is going to look like. So Andrew, here's an idea for you. I noticed on GitHub, let me go over to here, that on your NY Studio 107 account, that you currently have 95 repositories. Public. I don't know how many private you have and if that's in the count. Let's
I
just
will
say,
not reveal that.
what's that?
I will not reveal how many
Okay.
private ones are.
So whatever, we're going to go only by this badge from the public view of 95. Once you hit 107 repositories, I think you should retire.
Just done.
Just it. Just drop the
I
mic,
like it.
move on, go do whatever you have to do. I don't care if you have to build a bridge from your house 1 mile to the lake. So you do have lake access. Buy a helicopter. Oh, that big piece of grass where I want to build my house on your property.
Helopad.
Yeah.
Could do it. Yeah.
Would your wife go for that?
No. I
Okay.
wanted to build a lake there. She didn't want to do that either.
Well, who cuts the grass?
Who do you think, Ryan? It's me.
Right.
So
Those
I
kids
like
are
your
getting
idea,
older.
Ryan, that I just retire at when I reach 107 on the number of repositories.
Yep.
Or
Or
I'm going to suggest an alternative to you.
okay.
Once I surpass the 107, I could be NY Studio 108, 109. Like it could just keep going, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Works both ways. Yeah.
That's true. You have to secure those domains. You wouldn't want someone like me to buy those up from you.
I really hope you waste your money on it.
No, I've wasted enough
Just buy
money
them
on
all.
domains. I don't need to do that. All right, Andrew,
I made some really profitable domains a long time ago, right?
did you? It used to be
Yeah.
like what crypto is now, right? You could kind of buy and get in
Yep.
early. Although never, I don't think you had people becoming millionaires overnight on a bet of some meme coin. But
Well, I didn't do it like I know there were a lot of domain squatters. I didn't really do it that way. I
mhm.
just registered a bunch of names that I thought were cool or for a variety of personal reasons. And I had people approach me saying that they wanted to buy them.
That's very cool.
The
All right,
best was I
Andrew.
sold the domain for $30,000 and then it was part of a guy's sales pitch to rebrand his company.
Yeah.
And his pitch didn't get chosen. So he came back to me later asking to resell the domain to me. And I'm like, yeah, for $30, I'll buy it back.
Wow. That's amazing. All right, Andrew. Have you
Dude,
tried the GitHub Copilot? It's in technical preview right now. So I think it's not open access, but I'm pretty sure they're going pretty quickly through the queue of people that want to use it. Have you tried this?
I did try it,
Mhm.
and it made me angry.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to
Why?
yell
Why
at the
did it make
person
you
that was
angry?
writing the code.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm kidding. I think it's a neat technology. I mean, it does some things that seem like absolute magic, and it does some other things that you're just like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah. So it's AI, put those in scare quotes just because I mean it's thrown around a lot. Your AI pair programmer is how they call it, but basically it's using um, open source repositories and other public repositories of code and code examples, and then trying to smartly suggest code blocks. I mean, entire blocks, not just like this isn't just autocomplete. It's although autocomplete is arguably more helpful because it's aware of your context of what you're trying to do, as we'll see in a minute.
Uh huh.
But so it's trying to anticipate because at the end of the day, we're all, for the most part, writing the same type of code over and over again. Especially if you're in, I've noticed this. It's way better in, if you're writing like Vue or or React code because I assume that it's geared towards that, and there's a lot of similar patterns happening.
It's probably just that more data has been dumped
Right.
at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I gave it a try, and I did it in VS Code. So you can use it. There's an extension for VS Code. There is some in extension. I think PyCharm actually, if you want to use it in Python, PyCharm has uh, an extension as well. PHP Storm does not, as far as I could see. But I don't know if someone got it working or not. But anyway, I did it in VS Code. That seems to be sort of like the native environment for it. Um, it's it was interesting. So the first time I used it, I was actually typing up some copy in an email or for an email, and I was just editing the HTML document. It was just for a CraftQuest HTML email, and it started suggesting like copy for me, which was fascinating.
Mm.
Um, the copy wasn't very good. It was definitely very like generic and um, boring. I mean, maybe people say that about the copy that I actually write, but maybe it's more reflective of me. But it was kind of interesting. So I wanted to see. I never really used it for a lot of code, so I wanted to see how it works. Matt says that Vim has it as well. So if you want to try it in Vim, I want to try that
And,
because I don't use Vim a lot. I use it mostly for just for like quick
and
as a use.
Ryan, just some advice to you when you're writing love notes to your lovely wife.
Yes.
Do not use GitHub Copilot.
Oh, that would be so
Not going to
funny.
end well.
Yeah,
No.
that's probably it would be just like it would be just some sort of like Frankenstein love note from all the love notes ever written.
So here's the thing, though, just a general point about GitHub Copilot.
Hmm.
So it's an interesting thing, and it's definitely useful for some things and spectacularly fails on others. But I think it's also something that exposes that there are certain things that we do, we where that can be automated, just
Absolutely.
like on the assembly lines that they used to use to build cars. There were jobs that they could automate away with robots really, really effectively. There were other jobs that they cannot automate away really effectively, like design and a bunch of other things. But it just is something to keep in the back of your mind, that this is probably something that there's going to be more and more of this in the future. And things like this may be built into editors and all that kind of stuff. And we may think it's a little bit weird and discomforting, but it's probably really similar to I'm dating myself. I never actually used one, but kids used to have to learn how to use slide rules. Like I actually remember my older
Yeah.
brother had a slide rule. I never saw one in my life, never had to use it, don't care anything about it. But there was consternation about, well, should we really let people use calculators? They're not going to know how to learn how to use a slide rule. Well, in the end, it didn't matter, right? Because everyone just used a calculator, didn't make a difference.
Right.
And it's probably going to be kind of similar here in that at some point you're probably going to have some AI that assists you in some way, the way a calculator assists you. but you're still doing the more complicated, higher level stuff. So
Exactly.
as much as this might make you feel a little uncomfortable, like try to think about it from that point of view. Like this is just a fancy calculator, and approach it from that point of view.
And I'm looking. I was looking away. I was trying to look to see if I have the book in my office. There's a book by Cal Newport called "So Good They Can't Ignore You," and he would argue that uh, that your ability to define yourself by your highly valuable and specialized skills would supersede any of these technological advancements. So
Yeah.
that would be my argument. So right on the screen here, Andrew, all I did was hit return to get a new line, and then it gives me this thing here. This is what it's suggesting that I put in now. Is this?
Hmm.
And then if you hover over the suggestion, I can open GitHub Copilot, and it's going to synthesize my solutions here. And then it's now I can actually go through and see all of the solutions that it could potentially suggest to me.
Mm.
And some of these are
Interesting.
based on code in the project, and then some of them are
Yep.
not. So anyway, and then you can accept it. You can choose the solution. I actually don't want any of these, so I'm going to close this. So another thing is you can also do. So now you can see I just did a open a statement tag in Twig, and now it's offering a conditional if page header dot featured image is what it's suggesting. I don't know why it would do that, but that's what it's suggesting. It doesn't really seem to make sense. So just for context, Andrew, this is a out of the box Craft installation from your Craft repository in the Craft Vite branch. That's what we're using.
Got it.
So that has minimal markup. I believe index.twig is the only template. Maybe there's some partials as well. I can't remember what all is in here. Yeah, there's a little. Oh, so there's a bunch of boilerplate and stuff, but there's not a lot going on here at all.
That's very insulting, but okay. Let's go with it.
All right. So one thing that you can see it keeps doing it. This can get kind of annoying. But one thing I can also do.
This is why I was yelling at it when I used it.
Yeah, I can also say find all blog entries, and I can say limit to 10, and then you can see it's now offering some suggestions. Order by date descending. Okay. All right. Now it's suggesting based on those comments, set posts equal site.post, and then filtering through sort, date, and then limit 10. So this makes me think it's trying to use it's obviously using Twig, but it's using something that's maybe like Symfony based or something else that's not like Craft specific. I think that's where it becomes less useful, but perhaps there's not enough data for them to do something smart yet. Maybe the project isn't big enough if they're looking at actual project code, but definitely not enough because this isn't very useful. Even something like set entries equals craft dot entries dot section, like it's not giving me any suggestions at all.
And like you said, this might be just because it's mostly framework boilerplate
Right.
that is in here, and it doesn't have enough of your code to kind of look at. But there's a really interesting point that you're making here. So are you aware of the difference between declarative and imperative programming and what they are?
I don't know that I could actually define it on the live stream. So why don't you do it?
So it probably a poor definition, but the one that I use is that declarative is where you write in a programming model, you write what you want the outcome to be. And in imperative, you're writing the steps, right? So in one, you define an outcome and something else kind of makes that happen. And with imperative, you're writing the steps, like, literal programming the stuff. And kind of what you're doing here is when you're using an assistant like this, it's going to be really good at doing the declarative part of the programming for you, right? About figuring out all the steps, right? But the the declarative part, where someone has to figure out what the final thing should look like, or what the steps should be, is something that you as a human are going to be doing. And you kind of did that in your comment up there, right? You're
Hmm.
you're kind of doing, this is what I want the result to be, and then it figures out the details in terms of the steps that are needed to do that. So it's sort of an interesting tool that uses the AI for the imperative part of the programming, and you do the declarative part where you tell it, like, this is what I kind of want the result to be, and it kind of figures that out.
Yeah.
And that probably is going to be a model of how this is going to work going forward. Like, you still are needed to do the
Right.
higher level architecture and the higher level, what needs to be done, but it will then take care of the details for you. Just like you don't know all the details that are being done to calculate, square roots and logarithms and stuff. When you hit that on your calculator, you might have had to know that using a slide rule, many years ago, but you don't anymore. Calculator just does it for you, and that's cool. You go about your business.
Right. So I wanted to also go. I agree, Andrew, and I think that it also could for commonly implemented patterns, especially right now in JavaScript. Matt had mentioned there's probably not enough of like the twig, craft twig
Yeah.
data to,
Yep.
to really get good um, output. But for commonly used patterns, like if I'm like, oh man, I want to set up like a nav button that I can click,
Yep.
rather than someone having to like Google that, they can probably rely now on this personalized AI inside their code editor that will then
Hmm.
pop up the tool. And in fact, I tried it earlier.
Uh-oh.
Um, so if I go in here, I'm just going to create uh, a new file. I'm just going to call it nav.ts here. And if I just say like function main nav, and you can see now it's already populated here. Okay, I want to get the element by ID called main nav. I'm going to set up a toggle, and it's going to add the event listener for me. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
hit tab. So this is a situation where I think this could be really helpful. It's going to
Yep.
get people that boilerplate code that they're probably writing a lot, or they might know, like, in whatever, in PHP, I would know how to do this, or in some other thing, like, I don't know how to do this in this, in this domain, and it'll give them that information. Now I
It's
am
really a shortcut to what you would have done before,
right.
which is you would Google it and you
Yep.
would copy it from Stack Exchange and you would paste it in,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So it's advanced Stack Exchanged AI.
Right, which is a great. I mean, that again, going back to what that so good they can't ignore you. It optimizes you as an expert to doing the things that you as a human are really good at, and takes away and streamlines the things that you don't need to do. So
And it's a
that's
teaching tool.
yeah,
If you're like, well, I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. It's like, okay, here's how you do it. And
right.
then
Or this is
you can learn
this
how
is
to do it.
the beginnings of how you do it. This might not be everything I need, but
Right.
it gets you like that rough draft of what you need to do. So I think
Yep.
that's valuable, and I'm looking forward to playing it in sort of the JavaScript stuff I'm doing, using it there because I feel like it's gonna be more rewarding than in Twig. I just wanted to catch up on. Oh, I almost banned Matt. Sorry, Matt. Didn't click the wrong button.
My God.
Whoops.
What are you doing, Ryan? He's
Yeah.
mad with
So
power, ladies and gentlemen. He's mad with power.
so I think Matt's had some experience with this. He said if you have a previous bit of Twig in the file, it will take that into account for sure. And he said it has saved him a fair bit of boilerplate JavaScript and PHP, where the lines were essentially variants on previous lines. Totally. And I think for patterns like this, like, lots of people are writing code like this, it's gonna pop it up. I'm curious to see actually what I want to look at all the different options. Yeah, so it's just variations on that with close. Whoa. Oh wow, now it's defining all the different constants for and doing the query selector
At what
queries.
place does it replace that with a comment that says just use view?
It's true.
Like all that.
Right.
Ugh.
So anyway, I think it's super fascinating. I would encourage everyone to at least try it. You should be familiar, including you, Andrew.
I told you I've tried it, man.
All right. It's if you write Python, it supports it in PyCharm, so check that out. And we didn't talk about my Python excursion last week, Andrew, but we'll save that for another time. Oh no, we did talk about it on the Dev Mode podcast. Check that out. We did talk about it.
Yep.
And then also, use VS Code. I'm not sure. I use PHP Storm for all of my craft stuff, but if you use VS Code, check it out. I think it's worthwhile to learn and see what's going on in all these new tools. You got to stay on top of it. And Andrew, I am going to do the doc life. I'm going to do the doc life on my iMac. What do you think?
Good. Yeah.
All right. I think
you should try it out. We gotta worry about. I'm a little worried about you. You're becoming the mad prepper king. You got all this power. You know.
You're starting this like rumor about me.
A lot of rumors are based on fact, Ryan.
Oh gosh, I'm not a prepper. Everyone should check out. Andrew and I do Dev Mode. Well, the two of us do the stand-up podcast. Do we do that once a month? Is that what we do? Can't remember.
I mean, I guess.
You just beckon me and I show up. It's like the opposite of this show, basically.
That is far from the truth, Ryan. Speaking of prepper, I have done plenty of prep on many occasions. How dare you? How dare you? You forget the lovely charcuterie board that I delivered to you?
That was one of my favorite episodes we've done, for sure. The charcuterie board. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in and for watching. And I hope that you enjoyed the doc life. I'm going to go have some of the doc life a little bit later this week. And go ahead and check out GitHub Copilot. Sign up for the technical preview. I think they're sort of shoveling people through. Matt says 1 carry bag and 1 ZS HRC and prepped. That's all you need.
Ryan probably opens up his go bag.
I have my one password, like ultimate security password for my vault printed out in my safe. I probably should print out my ZS RHC file as well. That would be kind of funny.
Ryan, at one point, I want you to bring your go bag and show it live on stream. Open it up, show all the cash, show all the passports, show all your Walther PPK.
I don't have a go bag. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in and watching. We'll see you on the next CraftQuest on call. Andrew and I are live the first and third Thursday of every month. And I don't know. Actually, we're going to be live in 2 weeks, Andrew.
We're not.
It's Thanksgiving here, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Hang on.
No, 2 weeks from now is the 18th.
Perfect. So we are. We're going to be perfectly timed. So we'll have a Thanksgiving episode next time. And Andrew, his beard will be so long that he'll look like a turkey. So it'll be great.
Thanks, Ryan. And Matt Wilcox is saying, my personal machine is now doc life forever. So that's really cool. And let me know how that goes for you, Matthew. I'm interested in your experience with it. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. It's kind of a nice way to do things.
Yep, I agree. All right, Andrew, thank you, sir, for putting up with me. We'll see you on the next CraftQuest on call. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.